floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hello from my side as well. My name is Athanasios Lelis. I hope you've all enjoyed lunch today. Well, I'm a software engineer. I work for Unveiling, and together we will go over my presentation called Unveiling the Practical Prowess of OpenAI's ChatGPT, from advantages to employment proposals for developer advancement. Now, this presentation will start by providing a short glimpse on the nature of ChatGPT itself. We will going to shortly examine its training methods, how it responds and processes to queries, and what it is, essentially. Then we will have a short overview on its most common use case scenarios in the world of software engineering and development, before moving on to expose some of its advantages that it offers, as well as its shortcomings and dangers that its usage introduces. Finally, the presentation will conclude with proposing some healthy, we hope, and ethical ways of using it towards developer advancement. Now, over the past few decades, no industry has arguably experienced more rapid and profound changes as the one of software development. New and important technologies are continuously emerging at an incredibly fast pace. And as a result, a great amount of pressure falls onto the shoulders of developers and software engineers to stay ahead of the curve in learning, adapting, and becoming proficient with all the available and best of tools. And ChatGPT is exactly one of these tools. Now, there have been talks going around about ChatGPT being a job killer. And there are horror stories that are making the rounds about a dystopian future where it renders half of humanity meaningless. But in truth, reality is much more nuanced, as the market will evolve, as it has with the advent of any technological advance, and those that can leverage such leaps to their advantage will continue to be effective and thrive. Now, based on data released by OpenAI, ChatGPT reached 1 million users only 5 days after its launch. It reached the benchmark of 100 million monthly active users only in January 2023. And in the same month, it's been registering 13 million unique visits each day. 1.5 billion visits in September 2023. And last but not least, at least 2 million developers and software engineers are currently actively using it. But before moving on to its performance and offerings, let us shortly try to answer the question of what is ChatGPT. It stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It is a type of machine learning model-based chatbot that is designed to generate natural language text. It was developed and released by OpenAI last year in November of 2022, and it is based on the deep learning architecture called Transformer, which originally became known back in 2017 in a paper called "Attention is All You Need." It essentially is a very large neural network that is trained by employing text data towards producing and generating natural language text. We could consider that its training process mainly involves two stages. One results in a large language model, and the other one is fine-tuning this model towards producing language-related tasks. Now, in order to better understand how it works, we should probably delve a bit in the ways of its training. Exposure on multiple datasets affects the quality of the model, as it determines the diversity of language and topics to which the model can respond to. And as such, vast amounts of text data were collected towards its training, practically the whole of human knowledge that was available on the internet, varying from thousands of websites to Wikipedia articles and even whole books, only to name a few. Natural language processing techniques were employed towards the data pre-processing, like tokenization, normalization, lemmatization, and many, many others. And then the model was trained in an unsupervised manner. Backpropagation as is usual and common practice in neural network training, was used to optimize the resulting output by adjusting the network weights on each training iteration based on actual and predicted model output. The model was then fine-tuned and evaluated on multiple benchmarks and metrics before its testing phase began on language-related tasks like text comprehension, text completion, and of course, text generation. Now, answering a query from the model could be considered that it comes in three distinct steps, with the first one being that one of language understanding. The model there tries to comprehend the question with methods like tokenization, parsing, or contextual understanding before moving on to the phase of information retrieval, where it collects and analyzes data from its vast data sources. It finds relevant information to the original query and then assesses their suitability of collected data against the query. Finally comes the response generation, where the model tries to generate its response after evaluating for contextual consistency, relevancy, cohesion, and of course, grammar. Now, ChatGPT's capabilities made it applicable in a very large variety of applications, from academic and education to research, and of course, software development. Now, focusing on the later one, it is widely being used as a means to generate code based on conversation. In many scenarios like code completion, code refactoring, and code simplification, it helps translate code from one programming language to another, and not only does it generate tests for a given code, but also can generate structured test data according to each use case scenario specifications. It is used as a tool to help with code explanations at varying expertise levels. It helps in debugging scenarios by locating and probably solving bugs in many cases through conversation. It is used as a code review and code critique tool, and it even helps with conceptual explanations by providing coding examples on top of it. It promotes creativity and innovation by providing innovative ideas and disproving preconceived views. And in many cases, it helps developers create documentation for their code. But what are the advantages that render it such a great success? Well, first and foremost, its huge knowledge base. It never gets tired, as it's available 24/7, always answering with consistent quality and multilingual support. A big plus is also located within its fast response times and its scalability, as it can support a very large amount of users using it simultaneously. And it offers personalized experiences by remembering past conversations. Oops. Besides these, though, it offers new ways and insights to problem approach scenarios. ChatGPT always recalls code syntax and code patterns, and it can help by providing prototypes rapidly. It helps recognize edge cases in developers' code, and it bridges the gap between client and engineers by identifying and extracting specific requirements out of client-engineer text with methods like sentence parsing, text classification, text summarization, and others. Ultimately, it relieves developers of menial tasks, allowing them to focus on more complex issues and higher-level concerns. But ChatGPT is by no means perfect, as its usage comes with several shortcomings and introduces some dangers, especially when it's used out of the box. Developers, and especially those of junior levels, tend to over-rely on the model for the development needs. Lack of explainable AI and relevant evaluation metrics allow the model to perpetuate misconceptions or biases. It lacks any kind of sources when it's used as a search engine, and it introduces the hallucination effect, where it generates fictional outputs, but with enough justifications that make these outputs appear legit. In many cases, it has been found that it introduces vulnerabilities to security issues. And as its data dates up to 2021, it has a knowledge cutoff to newer code practices or newer code libraries. It has no reproducible outputs, as the very same queries generate different responses. ChatGPT acts like a calculator given to someone who does not know math, as it gives away answers without any or almost any effort from the developer's side, or for that matter, no knowledge prerequisites as well. It generates based on code that was written in the past, and we saw that it can help detect edge cases in code, but the opposite is also true. Since in multiple instances it has been found that it breaks the software's functionality under certain circumstances. It does not always present the best or most efficient coding solution, has no problem-solving capabilities, no creativity, and of course its users sometimes introduces ethical implications to the code, like plagiarism. So now the question that arises is, how can it be used in order to alleviate all these issues? How can we avoid becoming victim to all these dangers? Well, it's very important for starters that developers only use code that they can understand. ChatGPT should be viewed as a coding assistant or a supplemental tool like Stack Overflow or GitHub Copilot, especially for designing and answering programming questions for recurrent and common tasks, rather than building applications from scratch. Developers should educate and train themselves in the usage of AI, as AI literacy will enable them to ethically and effectively use ChatGPT and other similar tools. And of course, we should not expect a chatbot to teach us our jobs. Now, we should always be cautious about the ownership and the validity of AI-generated code, and always try to validate it. And of course, we should always test. Test within your application's context, as ChatGPT may come off incredibly confident, even when it generates inaccurate information. All interactions with ChatGPT should be treated as conversations, and our questions should be tailored based on its responses in order for us to come closer to the desired output. For example, let us consider a scenario where we ask it to provide us with the best libraries to be used in the program. ChatGPT may initially return a list of, let's say, 20 libraries, but when narrowing these down based on what is actually needed and the context of the application, we might end up having 3 or 2 or even 1 library. Ideally, it should be used in conjunction with other tools, for example, for debugging purposes, and it should not rely upon ChatGPT to deal with new problems, especially those of higher levels of difficulty. ChatGPT could also be leveraged for the Oracle problem, where it can identify the intention behind the what should be the likely correct version of the code, thereby allowing us to maybe predict the correct behavior of a program, and thus being able to determine the expected inputs, outputs, or associated test suits. As longer problem descriptions tend to make the model focus on wrong places, use short problem descriptions instead, ensuring concision and precision to the problem descriptions, which leads us to prompt engineering. Now, interacting in general with a large language model or an AI model involves feeding it prompts, which are natural language instructions that provide context to the model and guide its textual responses. Prompt patterns can lastly be viewed as a form of programming used to instruct large language and AI models towards performing a software development task. They codify a sound design experience, thereby providing a reusable solution for common problems in human-AI interaction, such as ensuring that the program adheres to certain design principles and coding guidelines. Now, prompt patterns can be probably distinguished in 2 main parts, like first one being, of course, asking a direct question to the model, asking for some information or some code to be generated, and then dictating rules to follow going forward. For example, whenever you generate a piece of code, also generate an extra requirements file where all the required by the code libraries are listed within. Furthermore, prompt patterns can ensure that business logic is separated from code with side effects, like file system or network access. thus making business logic easier to test and reason about, since it is always decoupled from harder to test and harder to understand code with side effects. To conclude, as said earlier, ChatGPT is by no means perfect. It has still a long way to go towards replacing developers and software engineers. But when used as a human intelligence amplification tool and when leveraging its features in a healthy and ethical way, it shows a tremendous promise in further transforming the world of software development. Here is a list of the sources used for the purposes of this presentation, and that concludes it. Thank you very much for your attention.